My roommate had to think I was a psychopath.
But I never thought about encountering that scenario, right?
Well, hey, this kid took a risk. Well, then I'd hire him on the spot.
Welcome to the $1 Million Sellers Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Chouquette. Today we have Corey Ganem on the call, or is it Ganem? How do you pronounce that, Corey?
Ganem. Yeah, so you nailed it the first time.
All right, cool, man. And Corey is one of the younger guys in the group. He just turned 28, he mentioned. I know there's a couple other young guys in the group as well, but it's always great to see the younger guys in the group holding it down and see what they have to offer. So I'm looking forward to hearing Corey tell a little bit about his story, how he got into Amazon, what being a part of the $1 Million Seller group has done for him. But with that being said, I'm going to kick it off to Corey. And Corey, why don't you just go ahead and give us a little background on yourself and how you got into this whole Amazon game?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, Nick, thanks so much for having me. And as far as how I got into the game, so probably like a lot of other people, stumbled upon some videos on YouTube back in 2017. So that's when I started. I think I created my seller account in April of 2017 and then got started actually May 21st, 2017, which was the day after I graduated from college.
Right on.
And I guess to even take a couple of steps back, so the reason Amazon even came on my radar in the first place was from a Reezy Resells video.
Okay.
And so a lot of guys, and he's been in the game for a very long time. He's got a lot of people into it over the years. And it was one of his videos. I believe the title was something along the lines of 25 ways to make money online. And this was back in 2017. So he had like 4,000 subscribers at the time. And now he's got well over 400K. And one of the methods in the 25 that he mentioned was selling on Amazon, and the method, I guess the model of retail arbitrage.
Okay.
And so up until that point, I probably like a lot of other people thought that anytime I bought something on Amazon, I was just buying it from Amazon, like Jeff Bezos was shipping it to me or something like that. But come to find out that there's this whole ecosystem of third-party sellers like you and me that are selling products on Amazon. And so that really piqued my interest. That was January of my senior year of college. And so really over the next few months, did a lot of research, looked into it pretty deep, and had a 2-month gap in between graduation and when I started my first real job out of college. And I'm not really one who can kind of sit around and do nothing. So I figured, hey, during this 2 months, I'll go to some thrift stores, I'll go to some stores, start flipping some stuff on Amazon just to make some side income. And fast forward about 6 years, and here we are. So that's kind of how I got started.
Nice, man. Shout out to Reezy on that. I think that's one of the first people I've heard say they got into it through Reezy Resells. I used to chat with him pretty often back in the day when I was trying to get my social media following up because he was just so damn good at that. But he had great content as well on how to sell on Amazon. So yeah,
no doubt. I actually got to meet him down in Miami for an Amazon conference a couple months back.
Okay.
Super nice guy, super down to earth, exactly as I expected, and got to pretty much thank him for getting me started, and it was really cool.
Yeah, he's very authentic. Like he's the same in person that he is on the content he puts out. I think he's big into like the skateboarding stuff right now. He's like making his own skate decks and stuff, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Nice, man. So did you always think you would be an entrepreneur, want to be an entrepreneur? Like, how did that play out? It seems like you kind of did. I'm guessing because of how quick you got into it out of college.
Yeah, so definitely. Always had an entrepreneurial inclination, I guess you could call it that. My dad's been a State Farm agent for 31 years, so he's owned that business. So really growing up, I kind of got to see business ownership firsthand.
Okay.
And some of the freedom that could provide, as well as some of the challenges too. So I know growing up in our neighborhood, I was always going door to door selling something, whether it was candy or whatever it was. Just always had a sales inclination and an entrepreneurial itch as well.
Okay.
And then in college, I really got heavy into flipping stuff locally. So buy stuff on Facebook Marketplace, selling on eBay, and always just was interested in buying low, selling high. So the flip was really just something that intrigued me, and I saw Amazon as a way to do that at scale. And so I think that's why the business really resonated with me from the start.
Okay, cool, man. So So yeah, let's talk next steps. You know, after things started to go well and you put a little more energy into it. Sounds like you were maybe 22, 23 when you first got into selling on Amazon, and then it seems like you kind of went pretty hard relatively quickly. So tell us a little bit about that transitionary period, right? Like I'm sure there were some doubts, some fears coming out of college. I'm sure you went to college for a reason. Maybe you were working towards getting a job. Maybe there was some pressure from your family. I think a lot of us go through these different things as we, go through that stage in our life. So how did you balance all that stuff and ultimately go with taking that risk of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, and that's a good question. So I guess after I graduated from college, I had that 2-month gap where really went hard at it, kind of got my feet wet. And then the first job that I had was in Chicago. And so if you remember, the model that I had been, I guess, implementing up until that point was retail arbitrage and then going to thrift stores and really selling used books. So that's something that requires a car. You've got to be mobile to do that. And then living in Chicago, I didn't have a car. So I knew I wanted to keep selling on Amazon and was kind of thinking of how to still do that. And so that's when I really got into online arbitrage. So using a tool like tactical arbitrage, it was still in its early stages at the time, and buying stuff from Target, Walmart, Vitacost, all these websites, getting it sent to my studio apartment, carting it half a mile down the street one way in the snow in Chicago sometimes to
Nice.
the UPS store to ship it into FBA. And then, I mean, honestly, I got pretty burned out on that, as you could probably imagine.
Yeah.
And so it was late 2018. And I was honestly ready to call it quits. I was just like, I'm making a little money. It's not great. It's really not worth my time. But I was pretty fed up with my corporate job at the time, which was in IT software sales.
Okay.
And about that time is when I stumbled upon Watch Me Amazon on YouTube. And so Larry Labarsky, he's one of the original, like an OG guy in the wholesale business model game. And stumbled upon one of his videos where he talks about just the economics of wholesale and how, for example, if you spend $3,000 off wholesale inventory and it's good inventory and you sell through it, it might come back as, say, $3,700. You spend that $3,700, it comes back as $4,500, et cetera, et cetera. And so really I just saw the snowball opportunity that specific business model presented. And so that's when January of 2019, I was like, you know what? I don't like my job. I want to have something else to do that ideally I can, I guess, step away from this job and do full time. So went into the wholesale business model full-time, or not full-time, but I guess full speed January of 2019, stopped doing the online arbitrage. And then I believe it was June of 2019, so really only 5 or 6 months later, quit that sales job, which was, in hindsight, not a great idea because we really weren't making any money selling on Amazon. But I was just like, you know what? Because the way I saw it, I was like, worst case, if this thing goes south, I don't make any money with it. If I have to turn around and get another job, I kind of put myself in the shoes of a potential interviewer. And I was thinking like, well, hey, this kid took a risk because I moved back home all the way across the country back with my mom. And I was like, if I see a kid that took this risk, was willing to do that, and now has the experience to show for it, well, then I'd hire him on the spot.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my thought process. Like, worst case, I could always get another job if this doesn't work out.
Very cool, man. I've never heard someone say it like that, and I'm kind of surprised that I didn't even think about it, because I feel like one thing I'm good at is putting myself in someone else's position, but I never thought about encountering that scenario, right? And like having that perspective that you just mentioned. Like, you're spot on. Like that is the type of person you want to hire.
Right.
I think on the other side of that, it's like, all right, is he going to try and do his own thing again? Or is he going to stick around here for the long run, hopefully, because it does suck whenever you put a lot of energy and resources into training someone, and then they leave, right? But I think that's where employers can get creative and think about incentives that motivate people to stay here. And then you also got like the golden handcuffs perspective, right?
Exactly.
Which can work in an employer's favor. So like those are things I think about now, because I'm hiring a lot right now. And we want to put a lot of time and energy into people, but we want those people to stick around. So we're getting real creative with like incentive plans and things like that, just so people like where they're working. and they want to
Yep.
stay here.
Exactly.
It's funny, like I'm 35, so I've got a few years on you, but like when I was younger and approaching college and in college, like work was just so negative. Like you never really heard anyone speak positively about work, right?
Right. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to get out of at least the position that I was in, because I'm not going to name the company. It was a very large tech company, old tech company, and people just didn't like it there.
Yeah.
I was like, a lot of them are making good money, but it just wasn't of interest to me.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I made the decision.
Right on, man. Well, good for you. Like what was going on at that time? Like did some of your friends think you were crazy? Like what were your parents saying? Like I know a lot of us during that time, like we have to overcome these objections from, family and loved ones and friends and maybe a girlfriend or significant other. What was that situation like for you?
Yeah. So, as far as my family was concerned, parents were very supportive, always have been. Like I said, my dad's been an entrepreneur, and he was like, hey, if you want to do this. Well, and partially he's my partner in the Amazon business.
Cool.
So, selfishly, if you want to call it that, he's like, hey, if you want to go for it, go for it. But, and then my mom also very supportive. Because I'm from North Carolina. Like I said, I was living in Chicago at the time. And so in order to save money, just moved back home and moved in with her. And she loved it.
Yeah.
She wasn't opposed to that at all. So yeah, from that perspective, that wasn't really an issue.
Okay.
As far as, friends are concerned, a lot of them, and it's not like I really like made it super public or said, hey, this is what I'm doing now. It's more so just try to stay quiet, try to stay under the radar and kind of do my thing.
Right.
And yeah, friends were supportive. I'm sure in their heads are like, he's got a pretty good sales job with this company making good money. Like, why would he do that? But, I never really got any negative feedback or anything from friends like that. So everybody in my life was very supportive.
Awesome, man. That's great. So you take that leap, you go in for it. It sounds like you were hustling pretty hard. I come from an arbitrage background myself. So like, I remember walking out of the Nike store with, 20 orange bags. And I used to have my wife and like my daughter. I think I have a picture of my daughter in the middle of a bunch of Nike bags. So she's just like surrounded by orange. And I think she was
awesome.
like, I don't know, maybe a year old or something like that. We used to go out there and I had people buying products too. I was doing profit sharing with, and that's when we got to scale it, very well, for arbitrage. But man, we used to do the U-Haul trucks. We would drive up and down the East Coast. We would load that thing up. We had the storage units, prepping our own stuff. Like it's a grind, man.
It really is.
Yeah. So what was that like for you? What kind of stuff were you, doing to help it scale?
Yeah, and so, and I guess to be clear, so I started with kind of a retail arbitrage, like thrifting, used books type background, but honestly never really saw a ton of volume with that.
Okay.
And with online arbitrage, same. It's like I don't even know why I kept going, because we never really got that big until we got into wholesale, which is our current model.
Okay.
But on the online arbitrage side, back when I was living in Chicago in that first apartment, my roommate had to think I was a psychopath because I swear to you, there were some days that I would go down to the package room to get packages, and they give you kind of like that the thing you see at the hotel that they load the luggage on, like, almost like the bellhop, like the bellboy uses. So my apartment had them, and I would just load it like top to bottom with packages, and it'd be 30 tiny boxes from Target, 20 from Kohl's, 10 from Walmart, and like they're spilling all over the place, and you're in the elevator with 15 other people like shoulder to shoulder. And I remember it so vividly. One day I was in the elevator and I had this thing filled to the brim. And this lady, and everyone in the elevator is quiet. And this lady looks at me. She's like, "Man, you've been doing some shopping."
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. I guess you could call it that. And so, but yeah, that's kind of the extent of the scale that we got to with online arbitrage. And then it kind of just transformed from there.
Nice. Yeah, man. I think I could say lucky, but when I hired people to do buying for me, like that's when it really took off. And then we were able to narrow down, like to focus just on a couple suppliers, and then they became like wholesale relationships, right? Like we
go to the managers.
Yeah, we go to the managers.
Yeah.
They would open the store early for you. They would add you, like if they had a WhatsApp group or like a text group, like you would really take it to the next level, and then they were tapping into inventory for other stores across the country and putting in orders for us and having it shipped to us. So that worked out really well, and that's how we were able to scale it. Online arbitrage was tough too, man. I had a pretty good system for online arbitrage, but like when I decided to stop doing it, I was like, I'm putting a lot of energy into like dealing with canceled orders and random virtual credit card numbers and different logins.
And like 15 different logins for one website.
Yeah,
and,
and then all the cash back tracking and stuff like that. Even though you had all those tips and tricks, like you could still lose it overnight. Like your arbitrage business could disappear for a variety of reasons. So I was like, man, I need to start putting my energy into things that are going to pay off in the long run. And that's when we started doing more wholesale, more private label. And that's been our focus now, as well as a little bit of brand management. So let us know about how wholesale went for you. Like, what kind of struggles did you face in the beginning, or what kind of struggles are you facing now, and how have you gotten through some of those things?
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as struggles are concerned, there were definitely quite a few. So, I remember it was January 2019, I want to say it was like January 6th, and it's the day that we established our entity, and I was like, we're burning the online arbitrage boats, so we're going full scale into wholesale. And while I was waiting for the paperwork to clear and have the business officially established, I was making a short list of brands that ideally I would like to have a wholesale account with. So, January 6th, papers got approved, started calling down the list just one by one, cold calling.
Nice.
Probably was doing 20 brands per day.
Okay.
I was cold calling for months, like not just a couple of days here and there, like every day for months and months. And anybody that's in the wholesale game knows that it's typically harder to go brand direct, not always, but the reason for that is, I mean, these brands are getting hundreds, if not thousands of inquiries like mine on a weekly or monthly basis. And so it just is really hard to break through the noise. And so I was just getting no, door slammed in my face left and right. But I was confident in the model, and I really wanted to kind of see it through. So it was just a whole lot of that. It was that whole year of 2019, we really focused on going directly to brands. And in hindsight, I would have done it a little differently. I probably would have gone to some of these distributors that carry multiple brands, only because they're typically a little easier to work with, in the sense that they don't really care if you sell on Amazon. At least most of them don't. So therefore, they're a little easier to access, like the products that they carry.
Yeah.
Now, it was 2020, beginning of 2020, when we really started to not necessarily pivot, because we were still reaching out to a lot of brands directly, but we started to add some of those distributors to the mix, right? So instead of calling 20 brands a day, it became, well, I'm going to call 15 brands, and then I'm going to look for maybe 4 or 5 distributors that carry those brands. So that way, if the brand themselves deny me, then maybe I can still access their products through a distributor. They might be a little more expensive, but at least I'll be able to access them. And I'd say that's when things really started to take off for us. I mean, COVID was part of that, and that really helped, because I'm sure you remember back in 2020, it's like really anything you could get your hands on would sell and was profitable. The issue was being able to get your hands on it. So that year was a challenge in that sense, that tons of opportunities. It's just really having, I guess, relationships and a strong network during that year would have been extremely beneficial. I didn't have that at the time. So that's been a focus of mine over the last year, starting to build that. And really the primary challenges these days are just capital, because access to product is not an issue. I mean, we've got more or less unlimited products that we could purchase. So it's just capital, and then, team, having the right people, having them in the right seats, and really just executing on the stuff that we know that works day in and day out.
I love how you immediately started off making phone calls.
Which is like, I think that's another reason why I consider myself definitely really good at it, because like I've had well over 1,000, not just calls, but like conversations.
Yeah.
When I looked at our CRM, now mind you, this specific CRM I'm referring to, we stopped using, I think 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so 2 years ago when we stopped using it, we had, I want to say it was either 2,300 or 2,600 suppliers in that CRM. So of those, call it 2,600, I personally reached out to either phone or email, at least 2,000 of them. And then the last, 4 or 5, 600 were reached out to by VAs. But that is definitely, I attribute a large portion of the reason that we have been successful is my ability just to get on the phone and have those conversations when a lot of people are content with hiding behind email.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out. And even me, someone like I love picking up the phone and calling people. Like I'd say that's something I'm good at too. But there's those times where like I don't want to, right? I'm like, man, I just want to send this email and get the yes and move forward, right? It's funny how we can sometimes deal with that struggle as well. But there's some people, I think the difference is that we are like, I won't let that get in the way of my success, right? Like in no way, shape, or form. I'll hardly let anything get in the way of that. If I have a goal, I'm going to be pretty aggressive to meet it. But because I didn't start out that way. I didn't start out making phone calls, but I was quick to make a phone call. If I wasn't getting the answer I wanted, or they weren't following up, or if they said no, but I really wanted the contract, I wanted to know why. Because there's a lot of value in that no. Like even if they don't say yes and you never convince them to say yes, there is a lot of value in knowing why someone doesn't want you to sell your products on Amazon.
Exactly.
Because that gives you, like a position you can take when you're talking to other brands in the future. It's like, hey, I know you're hesitant because of this reason or that reason, but here's why we're different and here's how we can help you overcome that.
It helps you kind of tailor your pitch.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that we have done well, because I mean, when I was starting out calling those 20 a day, I mean, I was clueless. I had no idea what I was talking about. They could tell I had no idea what I was talking about, which is probably why my close rate was so low in the early days. But it's like when you're getting 20 reps per day in, then you get to be at least decent pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so
and I think that's
those insights.
Yeah, it's such a great perspective to have. And you said reps, it makes me think of the gym, right? Like most people go to the gym and they're comfortable with sucking for a little bit, right? But when it comes to business, there's a lot of people, and myself included, where like I wanted to be great like right away. And I wasn't being patient with myself, and I wasn't willing to get those crappy reps in to get to where I need to get. And I just kept gravitating towards things I was very good at, which is great if you have other people on your team. But back at that point, like it was just all me, so some things started to slip through the cracks. And you really got to put yourself in that mindset of a beginner and be comfortable with it and actually be excited about it, because that's, when you're picking up new skills and you're learning something new that can add value to your business, and it's an exciting thing to be able to pick that stuff up. You just got to figure out, how to balance all of it.
Exactly.
It sounds like you used to work in sales, right? Is that correct? Software sales?
Yeah. So that was the job that I ended up leaving to pursue Amazon full time. And I mean, I will, again, like I said, I won't name the company, but I will say that experience was a great experience, because the really the first year and a half, which I mean is pretty much my entire tenure there, was a sales training program.
Cool.
So this company has one of the, I guess, more highly regarded sales training programs in IT sales. And some of the stuff that I learned, because like honestly in hindsight, it was so valuable, because pretty much day one, you're with a cohort. So I want to say there's about 30 people in my cohort. And so it's everybody that's going into sales. And they really throw you into the fire. They kind of give you a case study and they say, hey, study this. We're going to fly you up to New York for a week, and you're going to sit down and role play with people that have been selling at the company for 40 years.
Yep.
And like, when I say people were nervous, I mean, people were like losing it. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was too, but it was the best sales training, sales experience. And that translated exactly to what I did when I started Amazon and to what I'm doing today.
Yeah, man, I love that, because I think there's a lot of value in things that we may not even necessarily enjoy, right? And I think big business is something we can draw a lot of good information from. There's a lot of things we don't like about it as entrepreneurs, but I can tell, like, you started using a CRM right away, using terms like close rate, right? Like you had this experience that allowed you to become successful faster at Amazon, because you had this blueprint for sales, and you had this background, and you knew what to monitor. And it sounds like that really helped you. And when I look back on a lot of my experiences as an employee, I start, instead of just thinking of it all negatively, now I just look at the good things that I got out of it, and how I can apply some of that stuff to my business as we scale and bring more people in. There's a lot of things that big business does right that we can draw inspiration from. And I find myself looking to bigger business these days for inspiration on a lot of things, versus back in the day, it was just showing me the way I didn't want to do things.
One, it's funny you say that point right there, because that's exactly what I was going to follow it up with is, I mean, there's a lot of things that I didn't like.
Yeah.
And again, I see those as positives too, because they taught me exactly how I don't want to run a business. Now I don't want to manage employees, and I don't want to treat certain people. And so all of there were explicit benefits. There were also explicit benefits that came from some of the, I guess, the negatives of that experience too.
Nice. What would be your advice to someone, in that position now that's, they're in college, coming out of college, but maybe they want to do their own thing? What kind of advice would you give them?
So, I mean, I'd say do a little bit of research up front. I mean, that's what I did the whole, the 3 or 4 months that I had between when I found out about Amazon and when I graduated and started implementing. Now, I wish I would have taken action earlier, but the truth is I didn't have any money. So I didn't have I couldn't go to just retail stores and start scanning stuff and getting my feet wet that way through trial and error. So really, I would say that if you've got the desire, I would do a little bit of research. In fact, I gave somebody had this exact question on Twitter today.
Okay.
And this is my response: is do 1 week of research, but no more. And that 1 week of research could be anything from watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, that type of thing. And then at the end of that week, go out and implement.
Yeah.
Whether that means, if you're going to start with private label, then start reaching out to suppliers and getting quotes or doing product research. If you want to start with arbitrage, go to Target and scan everything in the clearance section for 3 hours straight. If you want to do wholesale, start calling 20 suppliers per day, right? But it's just do that initial information phase and then put that into action as soon as possible, because you're going to learn 1,000 times more and 1,000 times faster through trial and error and implementation than you'll ever learn from a course or a YouTube video or anything like that.
Hell yeah, man. That's some good advice. I get people that ask me about arbitrage these days, about getting into it. And I'm like, sign up for Inventory Lab, download Scoutify 2, go into a store and scan stuff for like 40 hours, in total, and you'll figure it out, right? Like
exactly. And really, that's I do that. Don't skip the whole YouTube page. Just do that.
Yeah.
And you'll find. I mean, you know as well as I do, 99.99% of people won't do that.
Right.
So it's kind of up to them.
Yeah. And that's really when you start to learn the most valuable information, because it all becomes relevant to your own situation, right? I mean, it's kind of like, you're wanting to get healthier in shape, and you see the latest bodybuilding routine on Instagram, and you start to do it, and it like doesn't work out for you. It's like, well, you're not a bodybuilder, right? Like,
you're right. Or you only did it for a week, or you're still eating McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah. So it really allows you to get the most valuable pieces of information that allow you to just level up in a much more faster way.
It's just those reps, like we said. It's just getting the reps in.
Yeah, and you're getting them in much faster that way. And you're just getting great feedback that you can process and implement your new information immediately. It's like getting into that flow state, right? Like if you have to leave and go on a computer and then come back a day later, like, you're missing out on the advantage of just being able to make a decision in the moment, have a new idea, test it out, and like keeping up with it.
Exactly.
So it's just such a great way to learn, and I think myself included, like I didn't get that at first. I kind of went too hard on the information side of things, and had to just kind of go through my process that I was going through at that time in my life. But when I look back on it and people ask me for advice, I'm like, if you're ready to go, get this, get that, and go. Like, just go for it. But like you said, most people aren't willing to go that extra mile right away.
Right.
So what's business like for you now, man? Like, what's your revenue looking like? What's the growth look like? What's the team look like? And what's a goal that you guys are working on this year?
Yeah, so let's see. In 2022, we were at about 4.3 million in revenue. And
Nice.
then, so every year since 2019, we'd grown revenue about 300%.
Nice.
And so the goal this year, we don't necessarily have a revenue target. Really, we're just more so focused on margins.
Okay.
Because we found that last year our revenue was significantly higher than 21, yet the profit was almost exactly the same.
Okay.
And so, that's not ideal. So we kind of like, all right, let's take a step back. Let's look at our business. Let's look at one, our most profitable suppliers, and then two, our most profitable products from those suppliers, and then really just double down on those.
Yep.
Double down on the relationships with those suppliers, double down on our best products. Because at the end of the day, I know you're familiar with the 80-20 rule. We found that 80% of our profit was coming from 20% of our suppliers.
Okay.
And then drill down a step further, 80% of our profit was coming from 20% of the products from those suppliers. So it's like there was a lot of products that we've been carrying for a while that just weren't so profitable anymore. So we improved a lot of our inventory. We stopped buying from certain suppliers that either the orders just weren't big enough to move the needle, or maybe we didn't like working with them, or for whatever reason. So we really just have taken a much more focused approach this year and said, hey, these are our top 10 suppliers. We're really not interested in working with anyone outside of them right now. These are our best brands. Let's roll with them. And then from a team perspective, right now we've got 4 virtual employees all located in the Philippines, and then I have a personal assistant, so she's located over in Nigeria.
Okay.
And I'm the only, I guess, US based employee, and so we try to keep it super lean and try to keep margins high.
Nice, man. Yeah, that sounds like you guys are in a good spot, just reining it all in, like really understanding your business. Gives you a much better position to build off from, when you've kind of cleaned up the scraps, so to say, and understand what you're focused on.
Yep. Yeah, so that's been the goal. It's growth is great, but if the growth isn't profitable, then what's the point?
Right.
So I know that that's been our big focus is, well, we don't need to be this huge company. We'd rather keep it a little smaller, but at the same time, keep much better margins and do things that way.
Right on, man. Yeah, I like it. What kind of stuff are you following these days to, gain inspiration on how to run your business?
So, really, I just try to take inspiration from a bunch of different sources. I'm a big reader. So I read a lot of books. I try to take some principles from those books and implement them into the business. One of the very influential book that I read for the first time, it's been a couple of years now, but I've reread it a couple of times now, in Profit First.
Okay.
Which I think you're familiar. And so we've taken that framework and modified it a little bit and then adapted it to our business. And so really we implemented that at the very beginning of this year. So the first payout of 2023 got divvied up according to the Profit First methodology. And I would say that that's probably been the biggest game changer for us in knowing that, hey, every dollar that we have coming in has a home.
Yeah.
Whether it's going into our pocket in the form of a distribution, whether it's going back into inventory, whether it's going to operating expenses, or whether it's going to taxes or freight/3PL fees. So those are all the buckets that our disbursements go into. And that's really helped us get a hold on our finances and scale, again, not rapidly, but at a controllable pace and a profitable pace.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of like value and confidence in knowing where every dollar is going. Like you said, every dollar has a home, versus just like selling, and maybe the end of the quarter comes up and you're like, oh, let me see how I'm doing.
Which is how we've been operating for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it helped get us here, but it's not going to get us to where we want to go.
Yeah.
So
100%, man. And it's always nice to log in and like see your profit account just growing. Like even if it's like when I first started doing it, I'd be like, all right, I put $300 in there,
Right.
and
It's the discipline, though. It doesn't. The dollar amount's not important. It's really the habit of putting something
yeah.
in it, whether it's 1%, whether it's 10%, whatever. But yeah,
And I
I'm
always
with you
like, even though it
100%.
was a smaller number, I always like looking at it and being like, this is all profit. Like this is
Yeah,
all
like this is going in my
profit.
pocket. Like
Yeah.
this is not going to taxes. This is not going to inventory. Like it will straight up be in my pocket at the end of the quarter.
Yeah. That's a
so
good feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I
absolutely.
definitely suggest, like, if anyone's listening that, is struggling with their finances and you're still small and doing it on your own, go read Profit First and take some advice from that book, because if you're struggling with finances, then that most likely means you're not one of those like naturally amazing people at finances. And this one, it fit better with the way that my mind thought about these things.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how it was for you too?
Oh, totally. Because our method before, like basically, if we didn't implement this, then it was probably we were gonna be in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Because we were operating our business from the standpoint that I'm sure a lot of other people do, which is where we've got X amount of the bank account. Amazon's gonna pay us X amount on this date. The credit card balance is Y, and the credit card is due on this date. It's like, if those numbers add up, we're good.
Yeah.
If they don't, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's pretty much, which is, a horrible, horrible way to run a business, especially when you're dealing with large sums of money. So yeah, we were like, hey, we got to get this in line.
Right on, man. Well, we'll start to wrap up a little bit here, Corey. I want to ask you some questions that will help the audience get to know you a little bit better, and maybe
Sure.
help them draw on some inspiration to do their own thing as well. And here we'll start with a good one here. Just really reflecting on, like, how does it feel to be you now? Like, how would 15-year-old Corey look at you now, and what would he think of what you've been able to accomplish?
15-year-old me would probably be pretty proud. As far as what I've accomplished, I personally don't feel like I've accomplished all that much, which, I feel like that's kind of the entrepreneurial dilemma,
Yeah.
even though, maybe objectively I have. But yeah, I'd be proud of me, and I'd be proud of the fact that I'm not satisfied, and that I'm still trying to keep pushing. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I like that. I think I know, like, the younger version of myself would say something similar, but at the same time, I always enjoyed, like, just being able to live in the moment, and I think that's what being an entrepreneur really gives us. It's like we're in control of our time. Maybe I'm still working 60, 70 hours a week, but I'm here because I want to be here, not because
Right.
someone told me to be here. And I've got kids and hobbies and stuff, so if something important comes up, I'm not going to work. I'm going to prioritize the kids. Or
Exactly.
if there's a hobby I really enjoy and the opportunity comes up to do that, like, I'm going to go do that, because I know it puts me in a different state of mind, that elevates my way of thinking and allows me to be better at what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Do you
Totally
have
agree.
any hobbies like that, Corey? Like, what are you doing in your free time?
Yeah, so I'm super into working out. That's been a consistent hobby of mine for, I want to say, like 11 years now. So that's how I always start my day. We got a really cool gym here in Charlotte it's old school. It's just people lifting weights for the most part. And I really enjoy that style of working out. So I do a lot of that. I've been trying to get into golf. And so that's something that I'm trying to build that habit of going to the driving range a couple of times a week. And really just, traveling to see friends. I've got some friends that kind of live all over. And so in free time, like to go up to visit some friends in Boston. I'll go out to LA to see one of my buddies from college, and really just spend time with people that I enjoy hanging out with.
Nice, man. Nice. And I know you went to the chapter meetup, right? The ATV riding?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I missed that event. I was bummed. For those that are listening, Corey and I are in the same chapter for MDS. He's in North Carolina. I'm in Virginia Beach. So that's the closest chapter for me is 6 hours down to see you
Well, you
guys.
definitely missed out because we had a blast.
Yeah.
We got pretty muddy, but it was worth it.
Nice. Yeah, it looked like a good time. I love getting out and doing stuff like that. You have to hit up David, man. Give you some golf lessons.
It's funny, was the second I said golf, he's the first person that pops in my head.
Yeah.
I know he's a great golfer.
Yeah,
so
he's so damn good
it's
at
kind of been
golf.
pushing me towards it.
So Corey, as you got successful on Amazon and attempted to scale your business, was there anything you had to change about yourself? Like, did you realize that something of your own accord was like getting in the way of your success? And if yes, like how did you overcome with that, or how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, so I'd say just delegation. And so
Okay.
this is something that I'd say it's something I struggled with quite a bit at the beginning, because I was always of the mentality that, if it's going to get done right, I've got to be the one to do it. And now, for better or for worse, I feel like I've almost taken a 180 where, I'll just get someone else to do it.
Yeah.
So, but because of that, I guess, mindset shift, I think now the challenge is I'm almost too quick to delegate.
Okay.
And so either my instructions aren't clear, or maybe it really just is simply too soon to delegate that particular task. So kind of have to rein it back in, optimize a little bit, and then take a more disciplined approach to delegation. But
Okay.
that was the main thing. And now, another thing too, and this has been, honestly, MDS was the catalyst for this. Starting out and really up until about a year ago, I really didn't have a network in the Amazon space at all, really not a network in general. So it's never something I really focused on. I knew it was important because everybody I've ever met in my entire life that's been successful talks about the value of a network. And I'm a pretty outgoing person. I like being with people, but I was very intimidated to walk into a room of, especially people that I don't know, and just make contacts, make conversation. And I think that what really helped get me out of my shell, like in that specific context, was going to the Mexico City summit with MDS back in September. I almost didn't go because I didn't know anybody, and I knew that I was going to have to kind of step up and meet some people and put myself out there. And that's really that's what put me over the edge and going, I'm like, I'm going to go. I know it's going to be fun. I'm going to force myself to interact with people and make some contacts. And that's exactly what I did. And this is a recurring theme throughout this conversation, but it's just reps, right? So I did that. I remember we had that mixer type thing the first night. I was so nervous, but made some good contacts. And then the next day, similar event, a little easier. Next day, same thing, a little easier. And then now it's like, not that I'm completely, unafraid to go into a room and talk to people, but it's like networking has just gotten so much easier because at the end of the day, you're literally just having conversations with people. And so I think that's been something that I was bad at, that I've gotten better at, that I'm trying to keep getting better at.
Awesome. How'd you feel after that first MDS event when you came back home and got back to work?
Honestly, a little overwhelmed because it's like there's so much good advice being given, so many good tips, and a lot of just like golden nuggets. It's like, how did I never know that? So you got like a notebook full of notes and all this stuff you're going to implement. And then also too, I know that's something that we all struggle with, but just kind of the comparison trap where, you think you're doing great, and then you show up to an event like this with 150, literally the most elite Amazon sellers in the entire world. And you're like, dang, I'm nobody. And so it's humbling and it's motivating at the same time. But I was really inspired when I got back. And I think that trip, like I said, was the catalyst to me doing some more networking. And that was it was a fantastic event overall.
Nice, man. Yeah, I always come back so motivated. There's a level of motivation I get from going to those events that I don't really get anywhere else.
Right.
So that's always the biggest thing I get out of it. The information is great, but I don't think there's any tip I could get that would be as good as the amount of motivation I come back with. And it'll last like 2 to 4 weeks. Like I am just overly motivated to get things done. So I just love going to the events, man. Always such a good time.
Yep, they're a blast.
Has MDS helped you in any other way? Like, why don't you let the audience know a little bit about MDS and what it's done for you and your business?
Yes, MDS has been a fantastic resource. The network is really I'd say the main thing, but also just the resources in the portal. People are just so freely sharing, documents, SOPs, playbooks, ClickUp tutorial, like anything that you think you might need in your business when it comes to like operations, you could probably find a helpful resource within the MDS portal that somebody else has submitted along the line. And I just couldn't believe that when I was considering joining MDS, I didn't know anybody else that was a part of it. So Frankie put me in touch with a couple of guys here in Charlotte that were members, and he's like, "Hey man, just talk to them and see what they have to say." And I mean, shout out Jason Pratt, John Klein, some other guys here in the Charlotte area were just so generous with their time when I called them up and said, "Hey, I live in Charlotte. I don't know anybody in the Amazon space. I'm thinking about joining this group. How's your experience been?" And they didn't even try to pitch me on it. They're just like, this has been our experience. These are our results. Basically make the decision for yourself. And each of them talked to me for well over an hour.
Nice.
Just gave me their time freely like that. And so the quality of people in the group is second to none, not to mention just the, their actual business acumen. So can't speak highly enough.
Amazing, man. Well, I know MDS is happy to have you in the group, and Corey's definitely become a pretty active member of the community. I know you're participating in a lot of the chapter events, and I see you posting a lot of stuff in the Facebook group. So it's always great to add another good quality person to the group, man. So thank you for being a good member of the community.
Thanks for having me, like I said.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. I'm not sure when the next chapter event is, but I'm definitely planning on being down there, and might be making it out to Spain later this year for the summit trip.
Yeah, I'm planning on being there for sure. I mean, if it was anything like the Mexico City event, it'll be worth it many times over. So I'm looking forward to that.
Right on, Corey. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's good to chat with you and get your story out there. Thanks for being pretty open and honest about everything you went through and what's been working for you and helped you scale your business. And we're looking forward to having you on again sometime soon, man.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for the time. I'm looking forward to it as well. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you, Corey.